but she was in pain, and then it began to extend for longer than expected. That was the point where I began to get a bit worried. I have 3 children, but the one that was most interesting is the birth of my first daughter. Okay, which is about 11 years ago. The day was interesting because my wife was about 2 weeks late, and then the pregnancy had gone quite smoothly, no serious issues. And in fact, on the day she cleaned the whole house. So it was quite interesting. And then she was even dancing, but she was a bit late, according to what the doctor said. She was about 2 weeks late. So anyway, we had to bring her to the hospital to be induced. So when we got to the hospital, I had no fears really, but before then, a friend of mine who I pray with told me that he had a revelation that I should pray concerning a difficult birth. So we did so, and we were trusting God as always. So anyway, to cut a long story short, when we got to the hospital, she was having a problem dilating. And if I recall correctly, I'm not a medical man, but there has to be a particular amount of inches that the baby has to dilate before the baby can come out. But she was contracting. And I recall she was in a lot of pain. And then there was a doctor, he kept coming out. Actually, he was getting on my nerves because he kept saying that, oh, everything's going to be fine. She's dilating, she's this, she's that. But she was in pain, and then it began to, if I recall, it began to extend for longer than expected. We went in the morning, she was there in the evening, then it stretched to the next day and she was in pain, and then she was not dilating. And many times in our culture, I think that there's like a requirement to give birth naturally. And okay, for her to give birth naturally and blah, blah. So there was no delay. That was the point where I began to get a bit worried. Because I know a little bit about medical stuff, just a little bit. I try and get myself informed. And a long labor is not usually encouraged because the baby gets tired, the mother also gets tired. So I said, look, if she's not dilating, then you have to just cut her up, bring the baby out by CS operation. Now, this is where it began to get a bit scary. The qualified doctor that would do the CS was not around. Began to get afraid, blah, blah, blah. I also began to lose my temper. I was about to choke somebody. Luckily for us, one of the doctors who took care of her, she was a female, but she's also the wife of my brother's friend's wife. So she became a bit concerned. She called the chief doctor, and then he showed up finally after a long time. She was a bit distressed, she was in pain. She gave birth here in Nigeria anyway. She was in pain, she was distressed. And then the doctor showed up, he says, well, hello, are you the husband? I said, yes, I am. He said, well, you're very lucky. I was about to go to Benin. I was going to strangle him to death. He finally got her ready. I actually learned later on that he was going to go to Benin, but my brother's friend's wife, who worked in the hospital, actually had a go at him and shouted at him and made him come back to do the operation. So when he came, he stood up, I became a bit calm, and then they now wheeled her into the theater. And then my mom was there, she was worried. My auntie came, being my first child, there's a lot of drama, razzmatazz, everybody knew she's been in labor for a while. I think one thing I have to say is that medical care in this country leaves a lot to be desired. It's almost like a lottery. I mean, the guy said he was going to Benin to go and play golf. And if he wasn't shouted on, he would have just gone to go and play golf, and my child and wife would have just been dead. It's crazy. So we just thank God that he did the operation, and then my friend and I held hands, we were praying. My mom was also a bit upset, praying. And the one thing I remember is that, I heard my child cry and scream, when the child was born. I said, that's my baby. And then the nurse said, oh, you have a child. And I said, okay, is it a boy or a girl? I think she was like, what does that matter? I didn't really care anyway. I just thought it would be a boy. So I went to see the child. The child was as light as milk. And I think the child eyed me that, who is this man giving me trouble? I have the pictures. And the child looked at me. Normally, they say before, when children were born, their eyes were closed for a while. But my child's eyes were open. And she looked at me like this and said, who is this man? Obviously, CS is surgery. So they now woke her up again. And then when they now wheeled her back, she was now woken up again. And then she said, oh, Segun, how are you? I said, I'm fine. She was even more worried about me than herself. And then she goes, what is it, a boy or a girl? I said, it's a girl. She said, oh, I'm sorry. I said, what are you telling me sorry for? You almost died. So anyway, that's what I recall happening. I remember what was remarkable is that she told me later on, after the child was born, that she was hearing the conversation I was having. And this is about maybe probably 50 meters away. So at some stage, her spirit had left her body. I mean, we talk about these things and say blah, 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 but these things I think are real because she was telling me the conversation I was having while she was in surgery. And there's no way she could ever have known because I was with only one person. So anyway, when the child was born, we were happy, blah, blah, blah. And that's the story of my first birth. That was a bit interesting. Thank God I God took control. And it's interesting because she's actually going to be 11 today. So thank God for that.